Good afternoon, Conference. Local dental committees were introduced in 1948 at the inception of the NHS. Their role was to represent dentists in the negotiation and local commissioning of NHS primary dental care services. They also had a pastoral role for individual practitioners in need. These roles are still relevant and are becoming more and more vital in the current high-stress environment that we practice in today. But the makeup of our profession has evolved greatly since 1948. The last two conferences of LDCs have called for a change in local dental committees to send delegates and observers who are more representative of our profession. This change has to start at a local level, not only to bring in a more diverse range of personnel, but also to encourage new blood. New members need to learn the ropes, have confidence to share their experiences, and the determination to challenge what has gone before. In order to develop an interest in the workings of LDCs, colleagues must be aware of its activities, and there is no better way of seeing this in action than by attending meetings in person. Wakefield LDC has open meetings, and as a new associate, I was encouraged to attend a meeting and see what all the fuss was about. With the promise of a nice scone, I went along, and I was welcomed into a group of practitioners who I know will always provide support for any member of their community. Elections came, I put my name forward, and this is how I come to address you today, proud to represent the dentists of Wakefield. Unfortunately, some LDCs choose to follow the original LDC constitution and have closed meetings. Now, I've attended many meetings over the last few years, and some of the business could be construed as dull and often repetitive, but at no time was anything discussed that could be classed as confidential or politically sensitive. There are many LDCs out there struggling to be quorate at meetings, with others having officers in place for so long that fossilisation is setting in. I see absolutely no reason for LDCs to have meetings which are closed to those who pay their statutory levy. People who pay should be able to attend, listen and contribute to LDC business. They may not have voting rights, but everyone has a view, whether we are older or younger dentists, practice owners or associates, hospital or community dentists, men or women. We are all there because we care about dentistry in our local area, and that ultimately is what is important. If we are to ensure that LDCs remain vigorous and effective, we must be open with our meetings and open to our members. Please support the motion.
We have two people who wish to speak to the motion. Keith Percival first, please, and he's speaking against the motion.
Keith Percival, Hampshire and Isle of Wight Local Dental Committee. Actually very reluctantly speaking against the motion because it's too vague. My concern is around the description of an open meeting. We already in Hampshire and Isle of Wight LDC welcome any observer at any time, but my concern is that if you had an open meeting that, as whatever that description of an open meeting is, and that you are inundated with large numbers, then the business of the LDC could be disrupted. As I said, I'm very reluctant to actually speak against it, and I have a lot of sympathy with it. It just needs tidying up and some safeguards built into it. Within our constitution, any constituent in Hampshire and Isle of Wight could attend, and they do. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Joe Hendren, please. Thank you, Joe. Joe is speaking for the motion.
Thank you. I'm speaking in the role as immediate past chair. And one of the reasons I would support this motion is that last year, as chair, I was invited to attend the BDA Young Dentist Committee, and with a view to describing the role and function of local dental committees and of local dental committee conference. And as we went on to say that the policy was trying to make conference more representative of the profession, we were trying to encourage younger people to attend. So one young chap stood up and said, I tried to attend my local dental committee meeting, but I've been stopped from doing so because they hold closed meetings. I'm not able to get in and share and find out what is being discussed. I'm paying my levy, but I don't have the right to bear witness to what's being discussed there. I take on board Keith's point. I think, yes, if you had 20, 30, 40 people turning up to an LDC committee meeting when you normally have 8 or 9, the secretary needs to organise a bigger room. And that's an organisational issue. But there are some LDCs out there who still have, in the Constitution, a part where they have closed meetings. And I don't think that's healthy. I don't think that's the way that we should go forward. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Joe. Zoe, do you want to come back, or are you... She sat down. Okay, fine, jolly good. Okay, so we will take a vote on this, please. Remember, LDC reps only. Those in favour of this motion, motion 1, cards in the air, please. Thank you very much. Those against? Any abstentions? That motion is carried. Thank you. Right, Leah.
Thank you, Chair. It's great to see so many generous people here giving up their time for our profession, a profession that's undergoing momentous changes right now, changes which already mean that, unlike before, moving forward, most dentists will only ever work part-time, and most dentists will only ever work for somebody else. And most of those dentists doing the work will be women. And if this conference is to remain relevant to future dentists, it's not enough to speak for them. We need young dentists at conference to speak for themselves. But there aren't so many here. And one of the reasons there are so few dentists here is the catch-22 situation they find themselves in. Because in order to come to conference, they have to be on their LDC. They need votes to get elected onto their LDC. To get votes, they need to know local dentists. And to know local dentists, they need to be on an LDC. So this is the conundrum. But you can solve this. You can extend a welcoming hand, proactively inviting young dentists into your LDCs. And in practical terms, one thing you can start with is to change your constitutions to co-opt 2 young dentists, thus eliminating for them this catch-22 situation where they can't get votes, because co-option means they won't need votes for the first term. And I say 2 young dentists because it would give them confidence to see other young people when they walk into a room full of strangers. Now, some of these young dentists will one day come to conference. So this is conference succession planning. And your LDC has to be a part of this. So I call on you, invest in the future of conference, reach out to younger dentists, and be the ones to give the future of dentistry its voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Right, okay. We have next Peter Tatton, who is speaking for the motion. Thank you, Peter.
Good afternoon, conference. Initially, I was against this motion, but then something happened at our AGM. An FD turned up, wanted to film the AGM for his log. So if you've seen his film of it, you know who we are. And I thought, yeah, great, fantastic. And after the AGM, he approached me and said, how do I get more involved? And I thought, well, you stand for election. There's a problem. Elections are in 2 years' time. You might not be around. So I think this motion is superb because it actually creates a formal pathway where you can co-opt people like him onto your committee for maybe the year or so that he is in the area. Conference, please support the motion.
Thank you very much. Right. Richard Grant next. Now, Richard, I notice you're an observer. We're happy for observers to speak, but priority will be given to LDC reps and GDPC reps. Thank you, Richard. Richard is speaking for the motion.
Good afternoon, conference. Am I imagining something, or is this a smaller crowd than usual? It seems like it. I'm from Northumberland, and I've been coming to LDC for more years than I can count. I'm very much for this motion, and the two LDCs that I sit on, we've used the possibility of co-options to include people who are very important to us. We usually have a representative from the community service. Whilst they don't have any voting rights, it is extremely useful for the branches of the profession to work together. And in working with the community, we can coordinate how and where we tackle our problems. This is one of the very many benefits that co-option does allow, and I urge you to vote for this motion.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Next speaking again for the motion is Sarah Canavan from Northamptonshire. Hi, Sarah. Also an observer.
Hi everyone, first time at the LDC conference, it'd be nice. I've missed the boat I've missed the boat when it comes to being a young dentist, so co-option onto a committee probably isn't for me. However, I do really support this motion. I've never been in a position where, until I met Leah, where I was in a position to actually to know people who were on committees who could allow you into that world. I've learnt more in the last year, having joined various committees via knowing her herself, and my wealth of experience has expanded greatly. I wish I'd had that opportunity when I was younger. I feel like I've had the last 24 years of practicing as a dentist actually with my head in the sand to a degree. So I absolutely, absolutely, absolutely support this motion, okay? I know young dentists, and I know young dentists who are disillusioned, and if they were in a position to have a little bit more power, a little bit more control over their careers, I think that disillusionment will reduce. So please support the motion.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Right, there are no more speakers to this motion, so we will go to a vote. Those for this motion, please, those wanting to vote for the motion, cards in the air, please. Thank you. Very good, thank you. Those against the motion, thank you. Any abstentions? Thank you. Motion 2 is carried. Well done, there. Right, next is motion 3. Judith Husband, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, conference, and it's wonderful to be back in my hometown of Birmingham, but it's a little bit disappointing to have to be stood here talking about what I'm asking you to do. When I left this city back in 1992 and went to Liverpool, my year was the first 50-50 intake for men and women. I expected over 20 years later that we would have a degree of parity within our representational structures and that we wouldn't have the issues that we appear to be having and the barriers that appear to exist. A few years back, a lot of time and money was invested by the BDA in monitoring committees and looking for where the barriers, if the barriers exist. That has all fallen by the wayside in recent years. We now have the PEC, which is the governing body of our association, the most powerful committee with only one woman sitting on it. It is not a representational committee in the sense that it brings different members' views. It has to consider all views. But it is important. It's important for us and all individuals from the diverse groups within our profession to be able to look up and see ourselves reflected and to know that we can also do that and to be inspired when we are younger. I was inspired by some incredible women. I would hope that the women out there are being inspired today. We have an incredibly diverse profession. It is not just women as well. ethnic minorities are not adequately represented. There are some suspicions, I have suspicions, I don't have evidence, that there could well be significant pay disparity within our profession. Just because we have a significant number of women dentists working in general practice, we don't know what their UDA rates are relative to the men. And nobody's asking the question. Nobody seems interested in the answer. Conference, I call on you today to show that we are interested and that equality and fairness is at the heart of being a dentist and that this is what LDC Conference is all about. I urge you to support this motion and hand over now.
Thank you very much, Judith. Right. There are no speakers to this motion, so we're going to go straight to the vote. Those in favour of motion 3, please. Cards in the air. Those against? Any abstentions? Thank you very much. Judith, that motion is carried. Thank you.